to the Ringer NFL show. Sheil Kapadia here with Steven Ruiz and Diante Lee. The preview show, week 7. Can you believe it? Week 7. We've got matchups, storylines, our contest, which I don't want to talk about, but I'll have to talk about in a little bit. Diante, I like it. You got a little different setup going. You look relaxed in I don't know if that's a recliner or stadium seating or what, but I expect big things from you during the show.
I appreciate it. Definitely feeling relaxed. I think I should make a bit out of where in the world is Diante in San Diego, you know. And today it's my old family house. What used to be my old stomping grounds.
There you go. He's looking relaxed. Ruiz, you're always looking pretty relaxed, I feel like.
That's right. I have a comfortable chair. No, I'm ready to talk about football. I'm fired up. Yeah, you can't be relaxed when you're podcasting about the NFL. You have to be agitated, and I'm always agitated when I
said last week football. That Steven has a defensive coordinator brain.
That's right. Always a little cranky is good when you're talking about football. But we've got good games this weekend. I mean, I was looking at the slate like, all right, you know, sometimes you go through and you say, all right, we can find 3 games. This one we kind of had to eliminate some games, not eliminate them. We'll talk about them in the second segment. But when we spotlight the 3 big games of the week, there are 3 really fun ones that could be headliners any week this season. And we'll start with the Super Bowl rematch. Chiefs at 49ers. 49ers 1.5 point favorites. It's going to be a fun one. It was a great Super Bowl. How many months ago? However many months ago that was. And now these teams play again. We get to see what's changed, what's the same, and how they look going forward. Diante, what do you got? What are your eyes on for this Super Bowl rematch?
I would say my eyes are really on Steve Spagnuolo's defense up against Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan's offense. That's been a point of interest for me since the Super Bowl last year. Obviously, I think we saw a lot of man. You saw a lot of blitzing in the Super Bowl last year, and that really frustrated a 49ers offense that had kind of had its way no matter how defenses were playing it throughout the year. And this is something that I think a greater storyline we'll probably be looking at throughout the season with the Chiefs defense, because I do think it's been doing the heavy lifting for the Chiefs team in this undefeated start to the year. But going and watching the way that the Chiefs play defense, the thing that I constantly come away with is how well they protect their linebackers from any stress. And I think that that's going to play a big piece in this game, because that's the thing that we know Kyle Shanahan offenses like to do the most. They want to create that lateral and vertical stress on the linebacker position. And I just feel like Steve Spagnuolo, for whatever reason, through his quarters coverages, through the blitzes and the simulated pressures, has really kind of solved in a way some of the stresses that we know this offense creates for the typical NFL defense.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit. I was just going to follow up. Like, yeah, I want a little bit more on that, because it feels like every defense right now is sort of like, like the number one thing is we don't have great linebackers unless you got Fred Warner on that side. It's like those guys are going to get picked on. So what do you think he does? And I know you mentioned some of it there to kind of protect those guys a little bit from being picked on in the middle of the field.
The first thing I would say is that he's willing to use dime and like extremely light personnel in a way that very few other defensive coordinators do in the league. And this is not just a 2023 and 2024 thing, right? Like this has basically been for as long as he's been there. I know Steven's made the Dan Sorensen jokes, but he did play a key role in the early iterations of Steve Spagnuolo's defense, along with Tyrann Mathieu, and now having Justin Reed on the back end. I think that for him, he uses so much dime on passing downs that there are just less linebackers to attack and more plus coverage players. But if you're looking at schematically and the structure of this defense, it's that they don't really play a lot of cover 3. That was the first thing that kind of stood out to me. They're like bottom, 25th or worse, basically, in every personnel grouping when it comes to cover 3 usage. And I think that for them, they view their defense as having their safeties bear all the stress. And they trust those guys because they have a versatile skill set to be able to handle a lot of the vertical stress that you'll get from a downfield passing game. And they've just done such a good job of playing physically with their safeties, of playing, with quick twitch guys at that third level of the defense, that offenses just haven't been able to take advantage of it in the way that you would typically see from these Shanahan style of offenses. So to me, I think that ultimately this matchup comes down to whether or not Brock Purdy can stay upright long enough for Kyle Shanahan to get those design find deep shots where you can maybe get a double move. The way that Rashid Shaheed got behind the Chiefs defense on Monday Night Football when the Saints played them, outside of that, man, it's really, really hard to work that 10 to 15 yard range, that intermediate passing windows that we know this offense likes to attack. I think they're going to have to really take some chances and play high variance ball if you want to loosen up the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I like how much variation they have within like their coverage types. And I think like figuring out what like general family of coverage the defense is in is like a big key to San Francisco's offense and how they kind of operate. And when you're kind of clouding that picture and you're putting like certain bodies in different areas, like one thing they'll do when they play cover 2 is have a safety run the middle of the field rather than a linebacker. And you can, I mean, it's obvious how that helps out. You have a more agile body. You have someone who's more used to playing pass coverage in that role. And then just like messing with the drops of the zone drops of the linebackers and playing different variations of cover 2, like not like a traditional Tampa 2 all the time, maybe more of a match cover 2. I think it does make things hard on the quarterback where it's not like Brock Purdy can drop back and be like, oh, I'm facing 2 high zone. It's more like, all right, what type of 2 high zone am I facing and where do you attack this particular style of 2 high? And just making the quarterback think a little bit more is always going to help. And then I think like on early downs, that aggression does help sometimes where you're not putting a linebacker in this bind where he either has to step forward to attack the run or step back to defend the pass. I think he's like figuring out those roles before the snap. He's like, no, you're just attacking the line of scrimmage. We have guys in coverage that don't have to do that. So he's not asking guys to do 2 things at once. And he's asking the quarterback to not only read the defense generally, but also the minutia of the defense.
And Sheil, I kind of want to flip your question or take a different perspective and just think about the kind of offenses that have had success against Spags' defense. You think about Cincinnati and Buffalo in years past, and those quarterbacks are willing to take those chances outside the numbers and play that high variance type of football because they have matchup problems out on the perimeter. To me, I think this is going to be a big game for Brandon Ayuk, who I think we've seen maybe take a little bit of a step back, and we're seeing teams play him a little bit more with press coverage. I think that if he's going to be that type of all-pro number 1 receiver in the way that we've been talking about him over the last 2 seasons, when he gets lined up in those one-on-one situations, he's got to be able to win vertically if they're going to find any space for this offense. Because the one thing we saw for certain in the Super Bowl is that this type of physicality that we know that Kansas City plays with does not really bode well for Deebo Samuel work in the middle of the field. And without having Christian McCaffrey to kind of try to pick on what linebacker matchups he does get, there's really not going to be very many schematic clear advantages for this offense. A lot of this is going to come down to guys winning one-on-one matchups on the perimeter.
Yeah, Ayuk had the one monster game, but other than that, it's just been a weird season for him. They get the deal done, he stays, but he hasn't been a major factor where you thought, hey, they lose McCaffrey, that means Ayuk's going to be a monster to start the season, and it hasn't really happened. This is going to be a good test because this is kind of a bizarro 49ers offense, and you can look at all the numbers, and the numbers look good. They're 7th in DVOA, all the other stuff you want to look at. Especially the last couple weeks. It feels like the passing game and Purdy are kind of living on the edge and going too far towards the extremes of, oh, hey, he can, create some out of structure. It's like that's happening to me, at least the way I see it, a little bit too often, where it's like, all right, it's worked so far and I keep waiting the next week and the next week. And they're using play action at a low rate. He's holding the ball longer than any quarterback think about that for a Shanahan offense with Brock Purdy. He's holding the football nearly 3.2 seconds per average drop back. And it's just like, is that going to be sustainable over the course of an entire season? They're not picking up a lot of yards after the catch. He's kind of running around and pushing the ball downfield. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Again, in the aggregate overall, you look at the numbers, they've been good. But to me, I just wonder what Kyle Shanahan's thinking. Is he like, we can't play this way. Like, this is not going to last. We need to change things up. It feels like, Ruiz, that change up has to be coming one of these weeks, right?
Yeah, I think he's just waiting for Christian McCaffrey to come back and save this whole thing. Because that's what they're missing right now. They're missing that check down option they can throw to, or not even like a check down option. Because I don't think Christian McCaffrey actually catches that many check downs. It's more like plays that he's designed to get the ball, like option routes out of the backfield. And they just don't have that. And he was the one guy that was able to prevent teams from playing too high a lot too, because now you're getting matchup with linebackers and instead of safeties and defensive backs. That's another thing. Another part of this is that teams aren't playing as much cover 3 as the 49ers are used to seeing. And like all of these offenses, not just the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Lions, these offenses that are all kind of set up in the same way. Like, what are the highlights that you see from those three quarterbacks all the time? It's the same highlight every time. Them throwing between the two linebackers over the middle of the field with quote unquote anticipation. It's not anticipation. It's built into the offense. If you don't throw that throw on time, the offense doesn't really work as it's supposed to be designed. They're not getting those throws, and Brock isn't throwing on time. I don't think it's like necessarily on him. I think it's because of the structure of the offense and the opportunities that are there. It might give him the best shot at getting those explosive plays it has so far this year. He's not necessarily getting them in the same ways he was before.
Yeah, more tight window throws, higher percentage than any other quarterback in the NFL. Again, his average pass is going 10 yards downfield. Like all the things we think about with the Shanahan offense have not applied to this Shanahan offense so far this season. And now you go up against, one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. What's it going to look like? So I do think this is a early season. We will learn something. I think maybe even probably more about the 49ers offense than any other unit in this game. That's the unit I want to see. All right, what are their answers? What does it look like? Is there structure? Is there more structure? Are they able to come up with ways to attack this Chiefs defense? Because it just feels, risky to me. If this is a, hey, Brock Purdy, run around and make plays game, I think the Chiefs are going to have the edge with what they have on the other side of the football there. So that's going to be a fun one. Late window, Sunday afternoon. Chiefs at 49ers, both teams still, they're among the favorites or the favorites in their conferences to get back to the Super Bowl, even if there's been some ups and downs so far here early in the season. All right, next game, we go to Minnesota. The Vikings have been in this segment. How many times this season? I thought they were, I thought there's no way if you would have asked me before the season and set the over under, how many times will you be talking about the Vikings in the first segment on the preview show? I would have said it at like 3 or something. And here they are, undefeated, coming off their bye, 1.5 point favorites against the Detroit Lions, who are just putting 40 burgers on their opponents on a regular basis. I'm not overthinking this one with what I'm watching. Two of the best play callers, offensive and defensive coaches, schemers, designers, whatever you want to call them, Brian Flores versus Ben Johnson. What is this going to look like? Lions right now are 4th in offensive DVOA. Vikings defense is 1st. And it's weird when you go back and look at last season when the Lions played the Vikings, the numbers look great for Detroit. I feel like that's kind of cheating. It was week 16 and 18. That Vikings defense, it wasn't the same defense. They had put out how they're going to play on film. And now you have a different version of this Vikings defense where they can get home with 4 better than they did last year. They're blitzing at a lower rate, and they're playing better than they did last year. Last year, they were like a fun, wow, how are they doing this type story? This year, it's like, no, this team is the reason that the Minnesota Vikings are undefeated here. So as I'm looking at what's going to make the difference on this side of the ball, I was thinking you two have kind of, beat the nerd out of me a little bit, because I've been talking about running the football more this season than I have in any of my careers seasons as a podcaster in the past. And that's where my eyes went for this game. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at this Lions run game. Ben Johnson wants to run the football. That is like, if we can do this, we're doing this. If we can't do it, we'll figure it out. But they are a run-heavy team when you look at any of this stuff, early down, run rate, pass rate, all that. And so I think it comes down to, can they run the football against a defense that's been awesome at stopping the run? And if not, what does it look like for Jared Goff? Because Goff, early downs, 1st in the NFL in success rate, 3rd and 4th down, 11th in the NFL in success rate. So I can't believe I'm saying it, but I do think, Ruiz, the early down rushing effectiveness of the Detroit Lions is going to be a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, because it gets really hard on 3rd down against Brian Flores. Like, it gets so much harder than it does against the average defensive coordinator. And this defensive coordinator has given Jared Goff problems in the past, not counting last year where the Vikings just ran them off the field. They scored 30 points a game in both of those games. But some of Jared Goff's worst games, the ones that set him back the most in Los Angeles happened against a Brian Flores defense. Coincidentally, the first Super Bowl that he went to, or the only Super Bowl that he went to, I guess, where the Patriots trot out this game plan where we're going to make Jared Goff beat us. And there's the famous pregame report from Mike Girardi of NFL Media, who said, I think it was an anonymous player who was like, we're going to make Jared Goff pee his pants. And we don't think he's going to be able to handle that. And that's exactly what happened in the game. He scored 3 points after leading the NFL in scoring. And then the next year, Actually, I think it was 2 years later in 2020, he plays the Dolphins season. And they just blitz the hell out of him. Cover zero after cover zero after cover zero. And it's one of the worst games of Jared Goff's career. Is really the thing that I think started the controversy with Sean McVay, where he ends up benching him for John Wolford before a playoff game. He turns the ball over, I think, like 4 or 5 times in that game. A lot of fumbles dealing against the blitz. Really, maybe the worst game of his career. But he bounced back with the help of Ben Johnson. But now Brian Flores has the pieces he needed. Like, they built up the defense in his image this offseason. I think it's starting to bear fruit this year. I'm really interested to see which version of Jared Goff versus Brian Flores that we get, because it's been one-sided on both sides. We've never gotten like a competitive matchup between the two.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The other thing is, the play action that we just talked about, the Niners aren't using it. No one uses it more, Diante, than the Lions. And I actually wanted to ask you about this. Like play action, we always hear the quarterbacks who don't want play action. It's because when I turn my back to the line of scrimmage and then the picture's changed and I've got to get rid of the football right away. Our teams, is that defensive disguise that we're seeing more of, and certainly the Vikings. I mean, you don't know where anyone's going to be when you turn around off play action. Is that, do you think, one of the reasons why some teams or some quarterbacks are a little bit more hesitant to use play action than other teams?
I think that plays a role in it, right? Like, one of the reasons why play action was so effective in years prior is that I think you were getting a little bit more predictable looks on the back end. And that kind of goes to Steven's point when we were talking about the Shanahan offenses earlier, when we were previewing the Chiefs and Niners game, is that if I turn my back to a defense, but I know they're in cover 3, I know exactly when the dig's going to be open. It's just on me to get it out on time, versus I'm turning my back on the defense and I don't know if Andrew Van Ginkel is blitzing or dropping into the flat or playing the hook. I don't know if Harrison Smith, who was on the edge when I took the snap, is still going to be there, or if he's bailing to the middle of the field or a deep half, right? And that does change. That changes the dynamic. I'm really interested to see, to your point, not only the early down runs, but the early down play actions, because to me, you have to be able to punish this defense to get it to back off of blitzing. There is no dink and dunk element of the game that is going to dissuade Brian Flores from getting after a quarterback that he thinks that he can get the better of. To me, this is going to be about Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery really playing downhill football. This offensive line needs to win as often as possible. I think that this will be, if there is going to be an offensive line that can get after Minnesota's front, this should be it. Right, in theory. So I'm interested to see how they set up, perimeter runs. Are they able to use tempo? Do we see more or less motion? I'm really interested to see how Ben Johnson visualizes this game on early downs. And I think that, and this has been a big thing for me in watching Jared Goff this year, to me, when the year started, they weren't running as much play action. And I felt like Jared Goff was struggling a little bit in the pure drop back game. You saw the pick against the Rams, Sunday Night Football, to open up the year. He had a poor game against the Bucks after that in a pure drop back game. And then I feel like they kind of went back to the drawing board and said, you know what, we're going to simplify and get back to some play action stuff against Arizona, against Seattle. And that's when you really started to see things pick back up for Goff. So I'm interested to see if they can get some downhill run game going, if they're able to set up play action passes, really to push the ball down the field instead of trying to be precise and timing based in the passing game, the way that we know that Ben Johnson has kind of been over the years.
Yeah, they're second. Goff is second, to your point, second in EPA per play with play action, 11th without it. So it's not like he, turns into a turtle and it's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, but it's a big difference. And it's specifically a big difference for this team now because the margin for error offensively just got slimmer when Aiden Hutchinson went down. I mean, I didn't realize this until prepping for the pod. Their defense is 4th in DVOA. Now, that's just one metric. I know EPA and stuff, they're not as good, but DVOA tries to take out some garbage time and strength of schedule stuff. So, if you're looking at that, wow, the defense has really done its part so far this season, but now no Aiden Hutchinson, and I feel like they're going to make a move, but not in time for this game on Sunday. We know how they want to play. We know they want to man up these Vikings wide receivers. And Ruiz, I just wonder how effective that's going to be if your pass rush can't get to Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where it's going to hurt them. And this is the type of offense and the type of a quarterback that's really going to be noticeable that he's not there. Because you have Kevin O'Connell on the other side who can draw up all these plays. He can give Sam Darnold options if the defense does this, if they roll the cover 1, he can do this. If they play cover 3, they can do this. They play cover 2, you can do this. You know what he doesn't draw up? The pocket collapsing immediately. That's not designed in the play. It's not the right end totally swallowing up the pocket. And his little scheme guardrails can't protect Sam Darnold in those instances. And that's when we've seen the worst. That's when we've seen the worst.
How you said that with the disdain, also kind of like respect, but also disdain. Yeah,
you knew where this was going right when you teed up the question. You knew you set me up to hate on Sam Darnold, and I'm going to take that opportunity every time. I've kind of become you, like the voice of you, who is so skeptical of Sam Darnold.
See, this is what happens when I'm talking about running the ball. You're ripping Sam Darnold. Deante's going to be yelling garbanzo beans next week. This is what happens when you pile with each other for like 12 hours a week.
But yeah, he's going to be waiting for that Jefferson crosser to come open, and usually there's Hutchinson right in his grill, and he can't get the throw off. But he's not going to be there now. So I really think this is one of those games where it's going to be noticeable, and I think the Vikings offense isn't going to have too many problems moving the ball. And this defense that, like you said, has been good statistically.
Yeah, it will be a fun, so much to be determined in the NFC North. Like I said, I do think the Lions are going to address that position. Maybe this is a game that makes them think, all right, we have to do this like now before we lose some of these close games here going forward. I don't know that it's going to be a big swing, but there are guys out there who you can add, because they've lost 3 defensive ends. Like, it's not just Aiden Hutchinson. If it was just Hutchinson, that'd be a big blow. But you have other guys, they've just been hit so hard at that one position where it feels like they've got to do something here before the trade deadline. All right, let's take a break. We come back. We got one more, 2 of the most fun quarterbacks in the NFL facing off in Lambeau Field. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. Houston Texans, Green Bay Packers, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Ruiz. Where are you going with this game?
I want to start with the quarterbacks. I think they're the ones that are going to decide this game. And I think it gets decided on third down with these 2 defensive coordinators that are going up against. I think DeMeco Ryans is more willing to send the house at a quarterback. And I think Jordan Love has been one of the better quarterbacks against covers here, just because he's able to make these fadeaway throws away from pressure. We've talked so much about how he evades pressure. His sack rate is at 2.7% right now.
Crazy. Coming off a knee injury, by the way.
Yeah, that's with a bum MCL or whatever it was. And under pressure, his sack rate's only 8%. It's only like 0.2% higher than CJ Stroud's. And I think, I wanted to pose this question to you guys. I wanted to ask you guys, who would you rather have for the next 10 years? Would you rather have Jordan Love? Would you rather have CJ Stroud? Like, my heart or my head tells me to pick CJ Stroud because I think he's been the more sound quarterback. He's avoided mistakes. He looks more like your typical elite quarterback in terms of decision-making and accuracy. But a part of me just wants to pick Love because of that ability to throw in the face of pressure, which I think just makes his ceiling a lot higher, and his ability to throw downfield and off platform. I think Stroud is starting to do that, but I think Stroud has to escape the pressure to be able to get to a point where he can make a throw off platform or out of structure. And he's doing it at a high level this year, by the way. Whereas I think Love can stick in that pocket and just make the throw from the pocket, sort of like Matthew Stafford. I think that's like the difference between Matthew Stafford and like a Patrick Mahomes, where both of them are like creative passers, so to speak. But Matthew Stafford does it with like arm angles and his eyes and being able to move in the pocket and get throws off downfield because of his arm. Whereas Mahomes and like a Josh Allen is going to be able to run around until the receiver has time to get open. And I would put Love in that category with Stafford. And that's why I think I might lean towards him. And I am a sucker for these splash plays and the arm talent and the off-platform throws, but I don't care. It helps you move the football. And look at the stats between the two players. Jordan Love, even when dealing with a knee injury, is better than him in EPA, better than him in success rate. He has a higher ADOT. He's just been a more sound player down to down. Now, he does get more support from his play caller, Matt LaFleur, but I think part of it is his physical ability to make throws in the face of pressure.
I think to me, this is just Steven falling in love with the best clips, right? If you're just to put together a reel of like best throws per week, especially in high leverage situations. And this is something I was going to say regardless. I do think that there's an argument to be made that maybe Jordan Love is a more talented pure arm than CJ Stroud because of the trick shots, because of what he can do while taking heat right down the middle, right? I think that there is an element of CJ Stroud's game that almost necessitates him having to create a lot of space to be able to get some throws off. Now, we've seen him throw well as he's being hit, but I do think that some of the things we see in terms of bouncing around the pocket, trying to find those angles to get the ball off, I don't think that if you switch those two situations, I think maybe Stroud Stroud would not be able to replicate what Love does in the same way that Love could maybe replicate what Stroud does on third down. I just don't know if that necessarily makes Love a better quarterback. I think I'd still go with Stroud just because we see so much high level play on high leverage situations.
See, I picture Stroud playing for LaFleur and that offensive line. And I'm like, we're talking about him the same way we're talking about, not like the same way. I understand what you're saying with the stylistic differences, but no one's having any kind of conversation other than Stroud's playing like one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. He probably already
That's
is,
fair.
but it's with a
fair.
Texans team. Like I think that the situation, I do think there's a pretty wide coaching delta between what the scheme and the coaching is doing for Love, who I love. Like I've been asked this question. I was joking when we had our like show meeting this week. I feel like I've been asked this question 3 times in the past calendar year, and I change my answer every time with Love and Stroud because they were the 2 guys who came on the scene last year, and I was like, wow, these both these guys are awesome. I did my trade value thing, and I had Stroud 3rd, and I had Love 6th, and that was only because Stroud's on a rookie contract and Love got paid there. So they are different. I think, again, it depends what day you ask me. Right now, I think I would say Stroud, but I'm with you on Love. I mean, he just, I love, and it's a stylistic thing. He does stuff that's hard sometimes when he doesn't need to, but I'm still like, wow, it's pretty cool that he can do that. That 4th and 2 throw he had last week, you're just like rewinding that over and over again. Like how is he, wait, what is happening here on 4th and 2? You're doing that. And then even that prayer, which I didn't realize watching it live, he throws that prayer up to Romeo Doubs on the right side for the touchdown, and watching live, I'm like, oh, he just threw it up there. But there's more to it than that. There's a free rusher coming. He knows what's coming. He knows he has a one-on-one. I think an underrated skill of a quarterback is just give your guys chances when they're one-on-one. Some quarterbacks will not do that. He absolutely wants to do that every time. So I love them both. I think if I had to answer it right now, water gun to my midsection, I would say Stroud. But on Sunday night, I might, one of my takes might be like, I was wrong on our preview show.
I'm glad you brought up that play because I feel like that play is kind of a Rorschach test for quarterback evaluation. I've seen plenty of people online be like, that was a bad throw, obviously. Like he underthrew it. The receiver had to make an adjustment. But like you said, it's a one-on-one situation. He has like a half a second to make this decision because it's an all-out blitz and he has a free rusher right in his face. And he put the ball in a jump ball situation. That's the perfect place to put the ball. Outside
only his
shoulder,
guy could get it. Yeah.
His guy who has eyes on the ball and the cornerback doesn't can look back and find it and adjust to it while the other guy can't. I don't think that was he was lucky that the result happened. Like he caught the ball and turned it into a touchdown. But in terms of process, that's the best place to throw it. If you're expecting him to throw a pass that leads the receiver downfield and drops in over his shoulder, one, ridiculous. No quarterback is making that throw under that circumstance. And 2, I'm not sure that's the best throw in that scenario. I think you have a higher rate of completion if you just lob it up and throw a moon ball rather than trying to make it perfect. And the receiver not only has to catch it, if the DB makes a play on it, that it becomes harder to catch it. And then he has to get his feet down and it has to be before you hit the back of the end zone. So that was an amazing decision, an amazing throw. And I'm not sure how many players would attempt that in the face of that type of pressure.
Yeah, I think Love, though, as I'm trying to think about it in my head, I think Love is a more creative player. Stroud feels like I know what I'm getting every week type player. They're both, it's just like, I don't know which one I want. A lot of it would depend on what else. Do you think your coaching is giving you an edge or not?
Yeah.
Do you think your supporting cast is giving you an edge or not? Do you like your offensive line or not? I could see this poll given to NFL general managers and there being a real split based on what else they had. If it was like, hey, you can have either of these guys right now. So I can't wait for this game. I can't wait to watch these 2 guys. By the way, this is in terms of the scheming, this is the I don't trust either of you bowl for me with the Texans offense versus the Packers defense. I think what Stroud has done under those circumstances, it's really, really impressive. I don't want to beat a dead horse. We've talked about it a million times, but they are still 30th in success rate on early downs, and CJ Stroud is 4th in success rate on 3rd and 4th downs. He is bailing them out time and again with the way he's playing this year. And then the Packers defense has the biggest red flag, disparity when I'm just an analytics guy looking at. They are 27th in success rate and 1st in turnover EPA. Highest EPA gained on takeaways in the first 6 weeks of the season in the last 3 years. by any defense. That's a hard way to live. I think Stroud's going to carve them up a little bit. And then the other side of the ball is just strength on strength with that Packers offense and that Texans defense that's been playing awesome.
The Texans defense is a little banged up, though. That's the one thing I'm worried about. Yeah. And they haven't been great at defending the play action pass because of the way they play run defense. They just attack opposing run games, which obviously leaves some opportunities in the pass game. And then you're going up against a Green Bay offense that's one of the best at attacking that type of defense and one of the best at play action. Jordan Love has a passer rating of 132. That's according to Next Gen Stats, second in the league on play action. And the Texans have the third highest passer rating allowed against play action. So this is a strength on weakness on that side of the ball. And like you said, we have sort of the same situation on the other side of the ball. But I don't know. That's why I think the game's going to be decided on those later downs because the early down matchup is kind of even on both sides.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Texans at Packers, definitely two of the most fun guys, I think, in the league to watch right now. And they're so young. Just keep them healthy. And we're going to be talking about them for a long, long time. All right, let's take one more break. We come back. We get to the picks. The pick segment will tell you how we did last week and what we've got this week. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. Reminder, the picks segment. Here's how it goes. We can pick anything we want. It's just got to be minus 120 or better odds. Whoever is in last place gets assigned the slop game of the week. And that was your boy who went 0-3 last week. Terrible. Some nonsense London pick. I was already 0-1 before the early window games even started. Diante went 1-2. Ruiz went 2-1. And so on the season, Ruiz at 11-7. Diante is 10-8. 8-10. Now, all right, I need to launch a little defense for myself here. I'm a volume shooter. Okay, you limit me to 3. That's going to be. I'm like Nick Young. I need to get some shots up here. So I have been tweeting out 10 picks every week, and I just went on the record that I'm doing much better when I tweet out 10 games every week. I'm 34-26. So is that okay? I mean, I've been waiting. I've been trying not to sound so defensive and insecure when I'm losing so badly in this, but I'm like, all right, this week I got to break out the Nick Young volume shooter thing.
No, denied. You're dragging down our record as a group. We're 29-25. Without you, we would be 21-15?
Without me,
I can't believe I've hit this many plus odds. So
yeah, that's true too. I don't even do that. Shoot, it's even worse for me because I don't do any of the plus odds. All right. If it wasn't for me, if these guys would be, co-hosting Ringer Wise guys, but you know what? Now they're here, stuck with me doing the Ringer NFL show. So my slop game of the week, which, these nice gentlemen awarded me, Colts Dolphins in the early window. Can't wait. I might even have to just grind the all 22 before we even do our Sunday night show because I'm going to be so into that.
You have a prediction for that game?
I do like the Colts in that game. Anthony Richardson's coming back. So they're 3-point favorites. That's my only prediction. Why? Should I have something more than that?
No, I was just wondering. I'm going to try to avoid that game at all costs. If I can get through Sunday without hearing the result, I would consider it a good Sunday.
There you go. So, all right, we will get to the picks this week. Diante, why don't you start us off? What is your first pick of the week?
I'm taking something that's very similar to my season opening pick. And that's Bijan Robinson going over 89.5 combined rushing and receiving yards against the Seahawks. This is about as good a matchup as you can ask for the Falcons offense that has really been heating up over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, you get the Thursday night game, which is just like a back and forth type of barn burner. And then last week against the Panthers defense that I think we all identified was very bad and was down bodies. But I think the thing that has been most encouraging to me, even though they've been playing some weaker defenses of late, has been just like the distribution of touches. I like the way that Kirk Cousins has operated in this offense. I like the way that they have moved around Drake London. They've kind of toggled between him being like an outside guy that's running like these curls and hinge routes and maybe just trying to win one-on-ones and then bringing him inside and letting him be a yak threat. That has been a really interesting kind of development to this offense that I like with the way that Zach Robinson is calling things. Kyle Pitts has been more involved. And I'm bringing these guys up to say that with Seattle having to spend as many resources as they will need to try to keep a roof over these receiving threats and what Kirk Cousins has done in the passing game, and knowing that Mike McDonald likes to play with light boxes, this opens up so much opportunity for Bijan Robinson to go off on early downs in the run game. And those split safety shells means that he's probably going to be matched up with linebackers in the passing game. And that's going to give them a lot of opportunities to kind of attack one-on-ones underneath and get him some yak opportunities. So I expect a big day for Bijan Robinson.
I kind of have a competing pick here.
Okay.
I went Seattle getting the point, or I actually went the money line. I laid the point. I don't need the points. I think Seattle's going to win this one outright. But it's kind of along the same lines as Diante's point, where I do think Seattle's defense has struggled, but they've struggled against particular style of offenses, especially offenses that can get to the play action pass. They've been gashed by the play action pass. I think they're 29th in the league against it in terms of EPA. And Kirk Cousins has always been the play action guy, but he's only used it on 15% of his dropbacks this year. So I don't think you're going to see them attack Seattle's defense in that way where they're gashing them. But I do think they're going to have to replace those passes with something. And I think underneath to Bijan Robinson is a good way to do it. That's why I didn't go with the under on Kirk Cousins passing total. I went with the money line. I'm going to go with Seattle pulling the upset in this one.
All right. So Ruiz
I also get plus odds.
You get plus odds. So if you tie, you're in good shape. They are 3-point underdogs in Atlanta. Ruiz has them winning outright. Diante's got the over on Bijan Robinson rushing and receiving yards. Diante, your point about I feel like it's gone under the radar that the Falcons are 6th in offensive DVOA right now. It was like you had a week 1 and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Kirk Cousins can't move. This is a disaster. And here we are, October 17th, and they're 6th in offensive efficiency so far this season, which is, kind of wild when you think about it. If you look at it in the overall, it's just about as well as it could have gone with the start of the Kirk Cousins experiment. So I don't know. I feel like we were all making our Michael Penix Jr. jokes, and those will probably come back here at some point in the season. But right now, things are going well for Atlanta.
Kirk has a stinker in him. Don't worry about that. Kirk is
well, the funny thing about it, and this is something we said when we were doing the NFC preview, was like, it's entirely possible that this team goes 12-5. Yeah. And we have no idea whether or not it's a good team because they get to see so many weak defenses throughout the year, and that's just going to continue. So I don't know if this is necessarily an indication that the offense is good as much as they have something functional. And I think that having this complement of playmakers around a veteran quarterback, giving them a functional offense against bad defenses is going to give them a lot of opportunities to get easy points.
Right. That's what we said about this offense the last couple of years. It's like, this offense is very talented. Let's just get a quarterback in there who's not Tyler Heineke or Desmond Ridder. And we finally did.
There you go. Is Desmond Ridder on our team right now? I can't remember. He was traded to the Cardinals, but then he got released. I don't know. Well,
he's not on the team now.
I don't think we're going to look that up. So I was going to say we'll look that up, but no, we're not. We're just going to move on. I've got something from this game as well. This is a good game. Falcons Seahawks. I've got something, but it's not just something for my pick. It is also time for today's Better Together segment presented by State Farm. When it comes to football season, some things are just better together. And you know who's good together? Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. I know what you're saying. What are you talking about, Sheil? He threw the interception last week. Yes, they had the interception last week, but look at what happened this week. DK Metcalf comes out, takes responsibility for it. He didn't read the coverage the same way he was supposed to. He called Geno Smith after the game and apologized for it. Then Geno comes out and says, no, I'm accountable too. I got to know what the receiver's doing. It was a bad throw. This is what I like to see from a strong partnership. I still like this pairing quite a bit. And I've got DK Metcalf going over 65.5 receiving yards. I think this is a get right type game for this Seahawks offense. The Falcons have the lowest pressure rate in the NFL and the lowest sack rate in the NFL. If Geno Smith has time with this supporting cast, he is going to play well. That's almost, you can have no other analysis for the Seahawks offense. That to me is really all it comes down to. And so I think he's going to have time in this game against the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's going to play well. I think DK Metcalf obviously has been frustrated at various times. I think it behooves first-year offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb to come out and say, all right, let's get him involved early so that he's not on the phone with me after the first possession saying what's going on here. So I think DK Metcalf is going to have a big game here. I've got him over 65.5 receiving yards. So there you go.
I feel good about that. I feel like we all are projecting a high-scoring game, a highly watchable game too.
Yeah, I think it could be a fun game. Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. So we've all got a pick from that game. I've got DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. By the way, you know what else is better together? Bundling your home and auto insurance with the Personal Price Plan from State Farm. The Personal Price Plan lets you call the plays so you can choose the right coverage at a price that's right for you. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discount and savings, and eligibility vary by state. All right, Diante, we covered Falcons Seahawks. We gave that pretty much like the A block treatment. We went all in on Falcons Seahawks. What else do you have on your picks?
I've got another running back. This one should connect with you pretty well, knowing that you have the Philly special podcast. I'm taking Saquon Barkley over 16.5 receiving yards, which is right on our borderline at minus 120. I had a thought to take the under on his rushing yards, which I think is about like 81.5 or something like that. And I do think that he's going to have a poor day rushing the football. Obviously, no Jordan Mailata. There's a lot of kind of moving parts right now with that Eagles offensive line. You have to see Dexter Lawrence, who over the years has given this team trouble, and not having, Jason Kelce as your center now. If there was ever going to be a game where you really get exposed along your offensive interior, this would be the week. But I think that, because they're not going to have their go-to tight end in Dallas Goedert, more likely than not, I do think that this is going to be a good week for them to feature Saquon Barkley in the receiving game, especially against some Giants linebackers who I think are good run fitters, but don't cover very well. And you're going to get a lot of soft zone shells. So this is a good opportunity, I think, for Jalen Hurts to finally start targeting his running backs again in this offense.
I feel like I would lose faith in Kellen Moore if that's not the case in this one. Like that's where I thought Kellen Moore would help the most, is kind of changing up and varying the ways they attack defenses rather than doing the same thing over and over again. Like sometimes that work. It kind of worked last week. We kind of called the fact that they were just going to throw it up to AJ Brown and he was going to do the rest. And that's exactly what happened. I think on the first drop back for Jalen Hurts, he threw a pass against cover one down the sideline. But there are other ways to kind of replicate run plays without actually running the ball, like throwing it out to the flat to Saquon Barkley, throwing screen passes to Saquon Barkley. And if the Falcons don't do that and they just run into Dexter Lawrence all afternoon, I think Sheil's probably going to be complaining about the play calling on the pod on Sunday.
Yeah, there are a lot of, and we had a long discussion on the Ringers Philly special about this, that a lot of the issues that, or the things you looked at last year and said, hey, if you get a new offensive coordinator in here, these things will change, whether it was, say, mixing in some under center play action, throwing to the middle of the field, motion. Now, some of it has changed. They have a better plan for the blitz. They're using motion at a higher rate than last year. But then some of it, you have to look at the quarterback. This is the third different offensive coordinator he's had, and they're last in the NFL throwing over the middle of the field. They're among the bottom 3 or 4 teams in under center play action. So I think part of it is on the quarterback. Part of it is we don't know what Nick Sirianni's doing on the headset or at practices and his influence on the offense. But Diante, the second week in a row, you had one that I had on my list, so I'm going to go in a different direction. Yeah, what was the one? I'm trying to think if the one you had last week that I was going to do, if it hit or not, because we might have to start
get a cheap win out of you, Diante.
We might have to. No, it might be a bad sign for you if you have one.
That's a good point.
That I was going to use anyway. But yeah, Saquon Barkley, he really has not been a big factor in the passing game so far this season. He's got just 14. He's got 92 yards receiving. And it was week 1. They had that.
Week 1 is the only game where we really felt his impact as a receiver at all.
Yeah, they had that nice schemed up with the film nerds get all excited when the running back, goes through the offensive line, and then the defender has to pick through some trash to get to him, and they threw him a nice touchdown pass. Since then, it hasn't been a factor. So I'm with you. No Dallas Goedert in this game. Most likely, like you mentioned, you're going to need another option, and it's 16.5. It's not, 40.5. This could easily be 1 reception. This could be 2 receptions for Saquon Barkley. So I think that is a good one. As man, the temperature, we do a Nick Sirianni temperature check on Philly special pretty much every episode. One of our guests was joking. He's like, Sheil, you move this up in the show every week. And I'm like, yeah, it deserves to be moved up in the show every week. So they're 3-point favorites in a weird spot against the Giants. good defensive front where, man, I don't know what it's going to look like if they don't come away from that game with a victory. So I like that pick, Diante. All right, Ruiz, what do you got? What's your next one?
I'm going to go with Joe Burrow under 252 passing yards. Going up against a Browns team he has struggled with historically. This Browns defense hasn't been what it was last year, but they've been good at one particular thing, and that's defending quick game from shotgun. And we know if Joe Burrow is going to do one thing, he's going to run some quick game from shotgun. Against the Jaguars, I know the offense hasn't been good. The Jaguars had a 27% success rate on quick game against the Cleveland defense. The Cowboys offense had a 28.6% success rate, and that's Dak Prescott, who's actually playing good football. And then the Commanders, who are playing like the best of any offense in the NFL, had the worst of it. They had a 21% success rate on quick game, and they threw it 14 times with Jaden Daniels. It's the one thing the Browns have been able to kind of glove up, and they've historically matched up well with this team just because they do have guys that can line up on the outside and play man coverage, and they're not afraid to do it. They're not going to give Joe Burrow those easy dink and dunk opportunities. So a part of me wanted to go with under 23.5 points for the Bengals. I still think they're going to win this game. I just think it's going to be another struggle for this offense going up against a bad matchup for them. And if they do score a lot of points, then forget everything I said, and I'll be right back on the Bengals hype train like I was a couple weeks ago.
It's another one I had on my list. I'm looking at it right here. When I tweet out the graphic, both of those are going to be on there. Again, could be good news or bad news for you. I don't know, but I'm with you. The Browns defense played tough last week. I mean, you know, Diante was mentioning the Eagles' run game couldn't get going last week. I mean, the Browns line gave them more issues than any other defense so far this season. And then even the big plays to AJ Brown, like it wasn't like he was smoking those guys. I mean, those were, right, very small windows, low percentage plays. And that's why AJ Brown is an awesome wide receiver, because he was able to come down with those. But yeah, I agree. It's like the Browns defense, they come out and they're playing well, and then they just got to look at the other side. And it's just got to be human nature where you're like, all right, I'm going to keep playing hard, but man, we got no chance to win this game. I mean, they got a special teams touchdown on an unbelievable play by Myles Garrett, and they scored 16 points in that game last week. It's just like the offense cannot do anything. But yeah, I do think they're going to give this Bengals offense, who didn't play well last week against the New York Giants, I do think they're going to give them some trouble also. So I like that one quite a bit. All right. My second one, bring me the London pain again. We're all going to be together on the West Coast. I'm going to be watching this game at a 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. You're
going to have a loss by 9:30 a.m.
Before I even go out and get my coffee, I'm already going to have an L. That's going to be amazing. And this is really a stupid one. I mean, this is, what am I doing? I'm in my own head. New England Patriots over 17.5 points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're playing the worst defense in the NFL. Again, I gave you my Ryan Nielsen takes, last week. You're playing the worst defense in the NFL, 32nd in DVOA, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Drake May wants to push the ball downfield, so he can make some boneheaded plays. What do you call it? The Sam Darnold allegations, Ruiz?
Yeah. The bozo. Got that bozo in him.
He's got that.
He can have some bozo in him. You bring the bozo, pack the bozo, Drake May, to London. It's okay. You don't have to leave it here. You can still score over 17.5 points, hit a couple deep shots, and the Jaguars are going to be doing stupid stuff in that game. It's not like they're going to be controlling the game the whole time. You put up 21 against the Texans, who have a top 5 defense in the NFL, and you turn the football over 4 times. You're telling me you can't get over 17.5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm just going to keep the streak going. Is this the last London game? Have there been 2 or 3? I can't remember. There was one 3, before Jacksonville, right? Yeah. So this might be the last one. All right. Otherwise, I was willing to just keep up a London losing streak with terrible picks on this podcast, but it might have to end at 2. But I've got the Patriots over 17.5 points, a loss before I even have my coffee.
It'll be fine.
I was going to say, and I honestly don't hate this from this perspective for Drake May. I do think that some of those turnovers that we saw last week is just due to all the changing pictures that Houston can throw at you from a zone coverage perspective. This week, I'm sure you go into the meeting and you're watching film, and it's like, okay, we're going to be man. It's going to be man here.
Cover one.
They're going to play match quarters here. Like, it's going to be a lot of one-on-one and a lot of 4-man rushes. And I think that for Drake May, when you talk about play style and matching that up based on who he's seeing, I think for him, even if he is getting a lot of pressure from Jacksonville's front four, he'll probably play with a different level of confidence because he knows where he wants to go with the ball based on the way the defenses are playing him. This is probably a good week for him to, I think, find a rhythm early in the game that he couldn't against Houston last week.
And the Jags coaching staff got in late last week because of the hurricane. So Doug Peterson has had all week to golf and do everything but coach his team. So I don't think they're going to be prepared. They might be less prepared having time in London than they were last week when they didn't have any time.
What must this week have been like for the Jags? I mean, it's just like you go out there and you have a terrible performance, and now you just hang around in London here for a week, and now here come the New England Patriots. So Jaguars, despite their record, despite what they did last week, are 5.5-point favorites against the New England Patriots. I think you do probably get a little bit of an edge from having stayed there for a week versus a team and a rookie quarterback and a first-time head coach coming in for the first time. But man, 5.5 points with the way that defense and that team has been playing is a lot of points. All right, that was my second one. Diante, what do you got? What's your third one?
My last one, this is my first week, I think, this year where I haven't taken one with plus odds. But my last one is Baltimore and Tampa Bay. I'm taking the over for the total, which is 49.5 at minus 110. And to me, I think that this is, and the reason why I'm taking this is just because I'm kind of losing my faith a little bit in Baltimore's coverage unit until I see different results. And I think that this is another week for them where they're going to be seeing something like stylistically the worst kind of complement of wide receivers for the way that they like to play defense on the back end. Chris Godwin has kind of quietly become the best wide receiver for the Bucs this year and has been eating from the slot again with Liam Cohen. And Baltimore has been one of the worst defense, I think, just covering the pass in general, but particularly guys that are in the slot. They've been a bottom 5 unit by EPA. They're allowing over 10% of those slot targets to turn into explosive gains. That's 20 plus yards. And if you watch Tampa Bay, that's a big piece of their passing game is getting Chris Godwin vertically down the field, really trying to pick on safeties with over routes, with seam routes, with slot fades. This is going to be a big test to me for this defense on the back end and whether or not they're going to be able to get enough pressure to keep Baker Mayfield from working in a rhythm. Because if he is in a rhythm, this is probably going to be another back and forth game for the Ravens, and they're going to need Lamar Jackson to be the best player in the NFL again to win.
Yeah, Ruiz, I remember you described the Baker Mayfield game. I can't remember if it was the Sunday night show or during the week, but man, that was the full Baker Mayfield experience. I mean, they come out and he's just on fire, lighting up that Saints team. And then all of a sudden, they had two of the passes were deflected, but still, and then he had the third interception there. So a little hot and cold from Baker Mayfield. I think arrows pointing up for Liam Cohen. And you're right, Diante Godwin. I mean, that screen where he's just defenders are bouncing off of him. Very fun story the way he's played so far this season. Chris Godwin has been awesome. So yeah, there could be some fireworks. That could be kind of an underrated, fun Monday night game.
I can't wait to see like Kyle Hamilton come downhill on one of those screens because like that's what the Bucs have been thriving on. Like those behind the line of scrimmage passes, they've kind of helped them spur their early down offense. But Kyle Hamilton attacks those with a vigor I haven't seen in this league in a long time since like Brian Dawkins was playing.
Yeah, no doubt. He is awesome. All right, so that's one of the Monday night matchups. Ruiz, what do you got? What's your last one?
My last one is Patrick Mahomes over 19.5 rush yards against his 49ers defense. The last time we saw him play this defense, he scrambled 6 times. And I think part of that is he doesn't trust his tackles to hold up when Nick Bosa's back there. And I can't blame him for that. So I think he's a little more quick to get outside of the pocket. I do think over the last couple of years, that's something he's really improved on, staying in the pocket. After that Bucs Super Bowl where he said after the game, oh, this is my fault. I bailed on clean pockets too often. We haven't seen him really do that unless he's facing this style of pass rusher who's able to get consistent pressure. And I think Bosa is going to be able to do that in this game. And I think you're going to see Mahomes scramble a lot. And then I don't know how much of a hand Brandon Staley has in this defense, but I'm assuming he's really influencing the pass coverage plan, especially on late downs. And one thing Mahomes always was able to do was scramble against Brandon Staley and pick up big gains. He averaged 12 yards per scramble against a Staley defense over his career. So if you just give me 2 of those things, I'll get over the number. 19.5 seems pretty easy to me.
Yeah, I like that one. And it always just feels like if it's a bigger game, Mahomes is more willing to be like, all right, it's the fourth quarter, it's third down. So, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and take off here and be faster than whoever the defender is behind me and pick up a first down. So yeah, that is a good one that I like. See, I was going to ask, so we are allowed to do picks from the games we talk about in the A block, right? Or are we not supposed to do that?
I don't know. My brain's been so scrambled. It's a Thursday, Sheil. You know how hard it is, how hard these midweeks are.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do that too. And I'm looking at a couple here. I think I'm just going to go Lions plus 1.5. Diante, cover your ears, but I think this is going to be a great offense beats great defense type of game for the Lions against the Vikings. I could be regretting this on Sunday night when Brian Flores puts Jared Goff in a blender, but I feel like that Lions offensive line is just like that's the superstar of the team. I mean, they just make everything so much easier for everybody else. And when you have a physical runner in David Montgomery and then a home run hitter in Jahmyr Gibbs and a quarterback who can operate if he's not pressured, they've been playing so well. They're healthy. And for as much respect as I have for that Vikings defense, you've seen them last year. It's not like it's your first time going against them. So I do feel like the Lions offense is actually going to play pretty well in this game. And that Aaron Jones injury, we don't know if he's going to play as we record this, but I can't get that vision of that Vikings offense. When he went down in that London game, the last time they played, that offense, couldn't do anything.
I mean, that offensive game plan was effectively over after he left the game.
Yeah, they traded for Cam Akers since then, so it's like, I think they realize, I don't know if they think if that's going to replicate.
I don't know what kind of solution Cam Akers is for anybody's offense right now.
In 2024. And we've seen the Flores defense go up against this style of offense and have a lot of success against the 49ers. They give up 17, they give up 7 to the Texans, they give up 17 to the Jets. But those are all flawed versions of this style of offense. In Detroit, like you said, they have the offensive line where they're running it at the highest level in the league. So I think more so than any of the teams they faced so far this year, they could really take the teeth out of what Brian Flores likes to do with the pass rush and attacking guys. And all of a sudden, when he's not doing that, those little disguise pressures or disguise coverages where they're dropping back into deep zones aren't as effective. The one time we have seen this defense struggle was against Green Bay, against a Matt LaFleur offense, against an offense that can actually operate at a high level, especially in the run game. I agree with you. I think Detroit's going to win this game.
All right. We shall see. Lions plus 1.5. Listen, the Vikings have been making me look stupid for now six weeks now. So it would be no surprise if that continued this week. But I really, when you get that Lions team indoors, their record has just been absurd here the last 3 seasons. So I've got the Lions there. All right, let's recap our picks. I can start us off. I've got Patriots over 17.5 points in London. I've got DK Metcalf over 65.5 receiving yards. Seahawks play at Atlanta. And then I've just got the Lions underdogs plus 1.5 taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Ruiz, what do you got?
I got the Seahawks money line. It's plus 130 against Atlanta. I got Burrow under 252.5 pass yards against the Browns. And I got Patrick Mahomes over 19.5 rush yards against the 49ers.
Diante?
And for me, I've got Bijan Robinson over 89.5 combined rushing and receiving yards. I've got Saquon Barkley over 16.5 receiving yards. And I've got the over on the total for the Ravens-Bucks game of 49.5 points.
I love it. There you go. We will all be watching some games together this weekend in LA. Little ringer get together. So we will be doing a show together in person. Unbelievable. Ruiz might flip my lid like David Tepper if I say something mean about Dak Prescott or something. So that's a reminder that you should be watching. You should be subscribing to Ringer NFL on YouTube in case that actually does happen. You can watch it. We've been putting the shows up there. They've been a lot of fun, and it'll be fun this weekend with some awesome games coming up here. So thank you to Diante Lee. Thank you to Steven Ruiz. Thank you to producer Christopher Sutton and Dan Comer. Additional production supervision by Conor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopal. Again, we'll be back Sunday night recapping all of the action. Everyone enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you then on the Ringer NFL show.